What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the career of actor Bill Murray, who is one of my favorite actors of all time and someone who I genuinely believe is one of the 5 funniest men to ever exist. Murray began his career on Saturday Night Live with Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi, and then quickly started to appear in movies. I mean, early on he was playing fun and zany characters in Meatballs, Caddyshack, and Stripes. The movie Meatballs has absolutely nothing going for it except for the fact that Bill Murray is in the movie, and he does so much for that film. That film is endlessly fun because of Bill Murray. There is nothing else about that movie that makes me want to watch it, but man, back then, Bill Murray's star persona was enough to carry the film. And then you have Caddyshack, where there's so many stars in that film, Chevy Chase, Rodney Dangerfield, but it's Bill Murray who steals the show. And that one scene he has with Chevy Chase is so amazing. And I think Stripes is the most underrated performance of Bill Murray's career. That movie could not be made today. This was the era when the movie star was the movie, and Bill Murray was Stripes. He was Meatballs, and for the bit of Caddyshack that he's in, he was Caddyshack. Like, you can't talk about those movies without mentioning the name Bill Murray. That's how insane his run of movies was. And then he reached full-on movie stardom. He became worldwide known after he starred in Ghostbusters, which was a massive, massive hit. I mean, Dan Aykroyd's in that movie, Harold Ramis is in that movie, Ernie Hudson appears in that movie, Sigourney Weaver is in that film, but Bill Murray is Ghostbusters. I mean, you can't imagine Ghostbusters with anyone else but Bill Murray. I would say there are 2 guys who define the first era of Bill Murray's career, and it's the 2 people he worked most with, which was Ivan Reitman and Harold Ramis, who in my opinion are comedic geniuses. Murray worked with Reitman on Meatballs, Stripes, and the Ghostbusters movie, and with Ramis on Meatballs, Caddyshack, the Ghostbuster films, and Groundhog Day. I mean, these 2 writer-directors are so good. I don't think Bill Murray would have been in the same number of high-quality films if it weren't for these 2 gentlemen. I mean, Harold Ramis was his sidekick. He's in the 2 Ghostbusters films, and he appears in Stripes. I love movies that have Bill Murray with Harold Ramis. And then with Ivan Reitman, I think he's one of the best comedic directors of all time. Not only did he direct the Bill Murray movies that I mentioned, he also produced and wrote the film Animal House. I mean, Ivan Reitman was probably the best comedic director of the 1980s. And Harold Ramis is right there up with him. He not only worked with Bill Murray on all those films, but Harold Ramis also directed the first Vacation film that Chevy Chase starred in. I mean, these guys were like auteur comedic filmmakers. They made the absolute best comedies of the 1980s, and Bill Murray was kind of their muse. I mean, look at the list of films Murray worked with those 2 people on. There's not a bad movie on the list. I mean, Groundhog Day is looked at as like a modern masterpiece. The Ghostbusters films are one of the greatest blockbuster comedies of all time. I mean, I think a modern example of a collaboration like they had in the 80s is like Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen. I mean, back when Apatow and Rogen were coming out with like Knocked Up, the 40-year-old version, Super Bad, Funny People. I mean, that's what Bill Murray, Ivan Reitman, and Harold Ramis were like. They were hit makers. They were making hit after hit after hit after hit. I also think it's fair to say that those movies wouldn't have been what they were without Bill Murray, but I also think Bill Murray benefited from working with 2 of the best comedic minds of all time. I mean, Harold Ramis and Ivan Reitman are 2 of the best comedic writer-directors of all time, and I think they've become super underrated. Like, I think Bill Murray gets way too much credit for Ghostbusters or Stripes. I think those 2 played a huge part in making Bill Murray a comedic rock star. In the mid-90s, 90s, during the second half of Murray's career, he's almost exclusively worked with indie auteur filmmakers like Wes Anderson, whom Murray has worked on 10 films with, most notably on Rushmore, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, and Moonrise Kingdom, Sofia Coppola on Lost in Translation and On the Rocks, and Jim Jarmusch in Broken Flowers and The Dead Don't Die. I think these three filmmakers have brought out the dramatic side of Bill Murray. Like, nobody thought of Bill Murray as a good dramatic actor until they saw films like Rushmore, Lost in Translation, and Broken Flowers. But those filmmakers brought that side out of Bill Murray, and I think we now view Murray as a really good actor. Like, I loved Bill Murray before I saw him work with great filmmakers. I loved What About Bob, but you only saw the comedic side of him. I think when he works with Wes Anderson, when he works with Sofia Coppola, he becomes a really solid dramatic actor. But he still brings some much needed comedy to those films. Rushmore is an insanely funny film. The connection between him and Jason Reitman in that film, I love him in that. Moonrise Kingdom, I think Bill Murray's hilarious in that film, and I also really loved him in The Dead Don't Die with Adam Driver. I mean, Jim Jarmusch is another guy who gets great work out of Bill Murray. And then you have Sofia Coppola, who brought Bill Murray his Oscar nomination with Lost in Translation. Out of his dramatic work, that's his best performance. He carries that film. Scarlett Johansson is great in that movie, but that is quintessential Bill Murray film. He is incredible in that film. He should have an Oscar for that movie. When I was thinking about things that I really like about Bill Murray, I really love an actor who can make a movie better than it has any right being, and he's done that twice in my opinion. The first one is What About Bob? What About Bob is a movie with an insane premise, but Bill Murray made that movie one of the funniest films of the 1990s. And another example is Space Jam. We look back at Space Jam and we call it the Michael Jordan Looney Tunes movie. I don't really like Space Jam because of that. I really like Space Jam when Bill Murray is playing Bill Murray. That's what Space Jam 2 is going to miss out on, not having Bill Murray. He was just being himself for 5 to 10 minutes. He's insanely funny in that movie. He's bringing something to it that it doesn't deserve. That's what he did with What About Bob? He also did that with Meatballs, like I said on the top of the podcast. Meatballs, there's nothing going on for that film other than the fact that Bill Murray is in that movie. And even Stripes. Stripes is this movie with an insane premise, but you just want to spend time with Bill Murray. That's what the comedic movie stars bring. You just want to spend time with them. That's what Eddie Murphy did for movies. That's what Ben Stiller did for movies. That's what Jim Carrey did for movies. That's what Seth Rogen does for movies now. You just want to spend time with them no matter how ridiculous the premise is. And Bill Murray not only was in movies with ridiculous premises, but he made them really good movies. I think What About Bob is an underrated classic. I feel the same way about Space Jam because of Bill Murray. I don't think anyone else in those movies are special other than Bill Murray. Even Ghostbusters, Sigourney Weaver's fine in that film. Dan Aykroyd is fine. Ernie Hudson, whatever. Harold Ramis, he's real good in that movie, but I like Harold Ramis when he's with Bill Murray. What I'm trying to point out here is Bill Murray is the thing you like most in Bill Murray movies. He's one of those rare guys where he is what gets you to go to the movie, but then he's the one that delivers the most in the movie. The movie Scrooged. Again, we've all seen that story before. Scrooge and Christmas and whatever, and we've all seen so many takes on that film, but Bill Murray makes that movie one of a kind. That's what he brings. He's so reliable and he's always the best thing in his own movies. I think an underrated aspect about Bill Murray is his voice. He has a distinctive voice, and that's why I think he's done some really good work in voiceover performances performances. He's lent his voice to really good films like the live-action Jungle Book, where he was Baloo. I loved him in that. He was also in Fantastic Mr. Fox, Isle of Dogs, which were both directed by Wes Anderson, and sadly he was also in 2 Garfield films, but the reason I even gave those movies any attention was because of Bill Murray. He has a distinct voice, like only Bill Murray sounds like Bill Murray. I also think Bill Murray is one of those movie stars who has a character type. He usually plays eccentric characters who don't want to abide by social norms like having a family or being married, like his character in Broken Flowers or On the Rocks. Murray never plays a normal guy. Like in a movie, he has never played a normal guy who just has 2 kids and a wife. He has never been that guy because he knows he's eccentric. I like the fact that Bill Murray knows who he is as a human being, and he brings that to movies. He's not playing a super successful guy half the time. He's not playing a normal businessman. He is playing eccentric characters. It's not like he's playing himself, but he's at least playing a realistic version of who he is as a human being. And I, for one, commend him on that because he's not playing characters that make him look good. Even when he is the lead of the movie, he sometimes plays unlikable characters, and I find that really different from most leading men. I mean, most guys with the star power of Bill Murray play characters that make themselves look like the hero. We've seen it over and over and over again, but Bill Murray plays characters that makes him at some point look vulnerable and unlikable. The thing I like most about Murray is he's not just one thing. He's not just a TV star from Saturday Night Live. He's not just the guy from Ghostbusters. He's one of the few comedic superstars who's made the transition to drama and supporting roles while also still being insanely funny. I would put him on a short list of comedic superstars who I believe are really good in dramas. I would put, of course, at the head of the list, Robin Williams. I think Robin Williams was terrific in both dramas and comedies. Steve Carell has made that transition. I like Steve Carell in dramas more than I like him in comedies. Adam Sandler is close to getting there, but he's not quite there yet. Here's a guy I'll also mention, Ray Romano. Ever since Everybody Loves Raymond, Ray Romano has been putting in work in some really good dramas while also still being really funny. And I would put Bill Murray on that list. I mean, Bill Murray was the biggest comedic movie star of the 1980s, and now he's working with people like Wes Anderson, Jim Jarmusch, and Sofia Coppola in some of the best dramatic work of his career. And these films are still funny, but he's also playing some dark characters at times. I mean, watch the movie Broken Flowers. The movie is about Bill Murray trying to find out if he has a kid that he doesn't know about, and he has to visit all of his ex-girlfriends to find out if he has a child. I mean, that's kind of a dark subject matter for a guy who was in the movie Stripes and Caddyshack, and it's really believable that he's in that role. I mean, he has become a believable dramatic actor. I'll also say this about Murray. I think he is the best actor to come out of Saturday Night Live. I put him ahead of guys like Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, who even though wasn't on Saturday Night Live, hosted it enough, Eddie Murphy, Adam Sandler, and Will Ferrell. Not only do I think he's funnier than all of them, he's more consistently in good movies than any of them. Yes, Murray has been in some stinkers like Larger Than Life, Osmosis Jones, and Aloha, but he's always bounced back and remained relevant. There hasn't been like this 10-year run of Bill Murray not being a movie star the way that there has been for Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy might be just as funny as Bill Murray, but Eddie Murphy has had a time where he's been irrelevant. I think Will Ferrell is going through a time where right now he feels irrelevant. Bill Murray has never gone through that time period where he's been 100% irrelevant. He has gone through some time where he's been in some bad movies, but we still want Bill Murray to pop up in movies. When Bill Murray popped up in Zombieland for like 10 minutes, we were all super hyped. People still want Bill Murray in their movies, and that's something some of these other people can't say. Steve Martin has gone through a bit of a down period. He's popping up in a TV show, but Bill Murray has outlasted all of these comedic actors, and some of them are younger than him, some of of them are older than him, but I think he's better than all those people I mentioned. I think he's the best actor to come out of Saturday Night Live. Not only is he the funniest person to come out of Saturday Night Live, he's the best actor, the best dramatic actor. I think what's interesting about Bill Murray is that for some people, he's only known as the guy who's appeared in Wes Anderson films, and for those other people, he's only the guy that was a major movie star in the 1980s. He has two clear audiences, and that has greatly benefited his career. If I were going to rank him, I would put Bill Murray as one of the top 3 comedic movie stars of all time, right up there with Robin Williams and Jim Carrey. Those are the 3 guys. When those guys are the lead of a comedy, you had to go out and see it. They all brought something to comedies we've never seen before. No one had ever seen anything like Robin Williams in a movie like Aladdin. No one had ever seen anything like Jim Carrey in Ace Ventura, and no one has ever seen anything like Bill Murray in Ghostbusters. All 3 were in so many good comedies. Robin Williams was in Birdcage, which feels super underrated. Jim Carrey in Liar Liar. Bill Murray in Quick Change. And all 3 made the perfect transition into being dramatic actors. I mean, with Robin Williams, you have Good Morning Vietnam and Dead Poets Society. With Jim Carrey, you have The Truman Show, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Man on the Moon. And with Bill Murray, like I mentioned before, you have Rushmore, Broken Flowers, Lost in Translation. I mean, all 3 have brought something to movies that we've never seen before and we've never seen since. I mean, yes, there are some other great comedic stars, Sandler, Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy, but I don't put them in that same category because they weren't as consistent as these 3. Robin Williams, Jim Carrey, and Bill Murray just brought it each and every movie, and their movies have lasted the test of time. And Bill Murray is so interesting compared to those other 2 because those other 2 were more silly than Bill Murray. I mean, Robin Williams and Jim Carrey were all about bringing the energy, and Bill Murray in his movie persona is more of this like chill, funny, weird, zany guy. Like he wasn't doing the crazy Jim Carrey voices or the Robin Williams voices. He wasn't doing physical comedy in the same way. He was just being this cool, zany guy doing these funny quips. Like he was so different than the other 2. I think Bill Murray is the most unique comedic movie star of all time. You can't put a reason as to why you love Bill Murray. You just do. There isn't that same thing. Like when you say why you love Jim Carrey, you go because he does the crazy voices. He brings an insane amount of energy. You can see the effort that Jim Carrey is putting into the movie and you're buying it. You don't have that same relationship with Bill Murray. He's so unique. Like he's just being a calm dude. I think Bill Murray is just more of a natural movie star than Robin Williams or Jim Carrey were. I mean, those guys committed to the characters that they were playing. They committed to the funny voices. They committed to the comedy. Bill Murray was kind of just being himself. And I think that's the definition of a movie star, to be the most interesting thing on screen while also bringing yourself to these movies. He was kind of himself in Stripes. He was kind of himself in Ghostbusters. Even working with these great filmmakers like Wes Anderson and Sofia Coppola, he continues to bring himself to these roles. And I, for one, love it because I love Bill Murray. There's one of a kind. Like, he seems to understand he's more unique than the characters he's actually playing. That sounds like a weird thing to say out loud, but I think it's true. Like, the Bill Murray persona is better than any character you can bring on screen. I also just love his choice in roles. Like, he doesn't seem to do everything. He's not embarrassing himself like Robert De Niro as he ages, picking every role. Yes, he did the Garfield movies, but those are 2 films. He doesn't have like the De Niro list of 20 stinkers in a row. Like, Bill Murray is really choosy with his roles. And again, look at his list of collaborators over the years. Harold Ramis, Ivan Ivan Reitman, Sofia Coppola, Jim Jarmusch, Wes Anderson. He's also worked with the Farley brothers. Like, he's surrounding himself with comedic brilliance. He's not just working for whoever will give him the paycheck. He seems to care about the quality of movie. That's why he'll show up in a movie like Zombieland, because he knows it's probably going to end up being a quality motion picture. That's what I like out of Bill Murray. And that's one of the downfalls of some other great comedic movie stars. They just do movies. Like Eddie Murphy, there came to a point where Eddie Murphy would just do just about any movie just to be in a movie. And Bill Murray does not seem to have that problem. He picks the right movies. He's also had some supporting roles in some really good films. He showed up in Ed Wood, he showed up in Tootsie, and he showed up in Wild Things. So even when he's not the center of attention, he's picking quality films to appear in. That's what I think of when I think of Bill Murray. High quality. I'm going to enjoy what I'm watching because Bill Murray is in it. That's what he brings to comedies. That's what he brings to dramas. I just think there's no one quite like Bill Murray, and there will never ever be another Bill Murray. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, so please rate, review, and subscribe.